Professional wrestling, or sports entertainment if you prefer, is a lot of things to a lot of different people, but one constant function it provides is an escape from everyday life. So it can be jarring when promotions, including WWE, go down a dark path and weave elements of real-life tragedy into angles, matches, and storylines. They don't do it often, but WWE have incorporated real-life deaths, disasters, and even full-on wars into their programming in an effort to create heat, pop ratings, and draw money. What was that bit about smiles on faces again? I'm Adam Pachisi from Cultaholic Wrestling, and in no particular order, these are 10 times WWE used real tragedies in storylines. Join us. Number 10, Matt Hardy kills Jeff Hardy's dog. When WWE attempted to pit Matt and Jeff Hardy against one another the first time, the company quickly found out that fans had no real interest in seeing the brothers fight. Perhaps anticipating further antipathy, WWE attempted to generate significantly more heat for the sequel more than 7 years later, which included turning Matt into a full-on evil villain. As part of the storyline, the elder Hardy was revealed as the culprit behind several unsavory incidents stretching back several months, including Jeff's malfunctioning entrance pyro and the attack on him in the stairwell at Survivor Series 2008. WWE took things a little too far, however, when they had Matt insinuate that he was the person responsible for the charismatic Enigma's house burning down the year before. Matt even showed his sibling the dog collar that supposedly belonged to Jeff's dog Jack, who had died in the fire. It was OTT, insensitive, and really not needed for the feud, with Matt himself questioning the wisdom of the reveal to Vince McMahon himself. His concerns fell on deaf ears, of course. Number 9, the Iraqi sympathizer. WWE will not only use personal tragedies, but wider tragic events in order to tap into the zeitgeist and play on people's feelings when it comes to large-scale atrocities such as war. A key example of this is when WWE turned Sergeant Slaughter heel by making him an Iraqi sympathizer during the Gulf War in the early 90s. Iraq had been widely condemned for invading Kuwait, but Sarge claimed to appreciate the country's brutality while lambasting his own United States for becoming weak. More like G.I. Schmo, am I right? Going further, Slaughter began wearing Arab headdresses, adopted the camel clutch as a finisher, joined forces with Colonel Mustafa and General Adnan, and came dangerously close to burning Old Glory on TV, though he ultimately refused and torched a Hulk Hogan t-shirt instead. Ostensibly done so that the good old-fashioned red, white, and blue Hulkster could dethrone him for the WWE title in the main event of WrestleMania 7, many thought incorporating the events surrounding the Gulf War was in bad taste. After all, tens of thousands of real people died in the conflict, including 219 American casualties. Number 8, the death of a mortician. After The Undertaker's WrestleMania winning streak became so well defined, the attempt to break it was really all the storyline motivation needed to sell the dead man's matches at the Showcase of the Immortals. And that might have been the way it went when CM Punk became the latest man trying to end the streak at WrestleMania 29 had William Moody not passed away a month before the show. Since Moody, as Paul Bearer, had such an established connection with The Undertaker, his death presented WWE with an opportunity to weave reality into his dispute with the straight-edge superstar. Paul Heyman dressed up and mocked the Mortician, while Punk poured Bearer's ashes all over the Phenom in moves that some fans felt were disrespectful. However, WWE did clear the urn desecration with Moody's family beforehand, and his son signed off on it, while Punk claimed in interviews that the future Hall of Famer would have loved that his character was being used as the basis for a top WrestleMania match. Many years later, Taker echoed these sentiments, even though he initially had misgivings about the angle. Number 7, One Night Only. The UK exclusive One Night Only pay-per-view was another major moment in the career of Davey Boy Smith, who was returning to Blighty to defend the European title against Shawn Michaels in the show's main event. Emerging victorious on British soil while putting that damn degenerate in his place was motivation enough for the British Bulldog, but Smith added extra importance to the match by dedicating it to his younger sister Tracy, who had twice battled cancer. Tracy accompanied her big bro for his entrance to a match that surely Naturally, he was going to win. Well, that was the plan originally, and what Davey Boy had been told was happening, before a certain sexy boy convinced Vince McMahon that a Shawn Michaels win would generate a ton of heat and lead to potentially even bigger business with a rematch further down the line. And so the result was switched, with Bulldog instead passing out in the Heartbreak Kid's figure 4 leg lock as his fans and family watched on in horror. Honestly, soul-crushing stuff. Montreal happened 2 months later, so no rematch took place, and Tracy passed away in early 1999. Number 6. Cold-Hearted. The feud and resultant matches between commentators Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler was downright terrible in almost every respect. Whether it was Cole bringing out the King's son Brian the Prince Christopher and having him berate his father for years of supposed neglect, or the rotten Kiss My Foot blow-off match which saw Cole chow down on his opponent's barbecue sauce-covered toes, there was very little in the way of entertainment coming from the interminable dispute. One of the very worst moments of the whole thing was when Cole brought up Lawler's mother, who had passed away not too long before Jerry lost to WWE champion The Miz at Elimination Chamber 2011. The night after the King failed to win the big one, Cole delighted in telling his broadcast partner that his mother had the best seat in the house to watch him come up short, before asking Lawler how it felt knowing that he had let her down. The comments felt unsettling and out of place, and Lawler later admitted that Cole didn't want to say what had been scripted for him, only to be overruled. Number 5. A flair for the distasteful. Had tragedy not struck on March 29, 2013, it could well have been Ric Flair's son Reed carrying on the Flair legacy in a WWE ring alongside his sister Charlotte. Young Reed had not long finished a tour with All Japan Pro Wrestling and was hoping to make it to WWE, where Charlotte was training as part of the developmental program, when he passed away from an overdose aged just 25. Charlotte had started training in the first place in order to help her brother achieve his dream of becoming a WWE superstar, and after he passed away, decided to dedicate her own career to his memory. Clearly, the Queen had a very deep connection with her late brother, which made it all the more surprising, or perhaps not, that WWE invoked his name for cheap heat purposes in 2015. After Charlotte told Paige that she was going to fight just as her family had her whole life, the anti-diva responded that Flair's little baby brother didn't have much fight in him, did he? After some pushback, a WWE representative released a statement claiming that such sensitive material is only approved when the talent themselves are fine with it, but Rick claimed that he had no idea it was coming and was not contacted either before or after the segment aired. Number 4. The Weeping Widow. Brian Pillman was supposed to wrestle Dude Love at the Bad Blood 1997 pay-per-view in a match where Goldust, who had lost his wife Marlena to Brian, would get 5 minutes in the ring with Pillman should the Dude be victorious. The match, though, never happened, as Brian Pillman was discovered dead in his hotel room just hours before the show. Naturally, his passing meant that the storyline with the Bizarre One was dropped immediately, but that wasn't the last we would hear about the loose cannon. The next night on Raw, Vince McMahon invited Brian's widow Melanie onto the show to talk about her late husband. Though not exactly a storyline, WWE did use the interview as a ratings ploy, hyping it up throughout the broadcast, with Vince also taking it as an opportunity to distance his company from any talk of drug or steroid abuse. Critics felt as though putting a grieving wife on television 24 hours after the death of her husband was perhaps a little bit much, and accused the chairman of being at best insensitive and at worst outright exploitative by going about it the way he did. Number 3. Sasha about Neidhart. After Jim the Anvil Neidhart passed away on August 13th, 2018, it wasn't a shock to see his daughter Natalya pay tribute to him on WWE television, such as when she wore his ring jacket at SummerSlam. It was shocking, however, to see WWE use the relationship between Natty and her father as the basis for a storyline a couple of months later. Or maybe the shocking part is that it took WWE a couple of months to get around to it. The Riot Squad were the ones using the Anvil's death to torment the Queen of Hearts, Neidhart smashing a pair of his sunglasses at ringside during a 6-person tag match, and pasting Big Jim's likeness on a table ahead of her singles showdown with Ruby Riott at TLC, as well as the general taunting and classless comments. As a feud, it wasn't exactly an all-timer or anything, but at least it ended with a babyface triumph as Natalya managed to put Ruby through the wood and stood tall in that jacket and glasses combo. It must be noted that the former Divas champion was happy to bring her dad into the storyline and felt as though he would have approved of the whole thing, though apparently she wasn't too keen on Sasha Banks, later implying he was in hell. Number 2, healing a nation. After the September 11th, 2001 terror attacks, WWE were the first company to stage any sort of mass gathering in the United States of America when they taped an episode of SmackDown just 2 days later. Dropping storylines for the evening, WWE instead paid tribute to those who had lost their lives during the tragedy, as well as all of those affected. The big babyface of the night was, unsurprisingly, American hero Kurt Angle, who beat Rhino in the main event and led the rallying cry chants of USA as the show went off the air. So strong was the sense of patriotism in the aftermath of 9/11 that WWE felt that they needed to change course. They didn't necessarily weave the tragedy into storylines, but they did alter creative due to the general mood of their domestic audience. Angle had originally been scheduled to lose his upcoming WWE title match against Stone Cold Steve Austin at Unforgiven, but both Kurt and Vince felt like the all-American hometown hero losing in such circumstances would be a bad call, and so changed the script and had the gold medalist go over Stone Cold instead. Number 1, Eddie exploitation. The sudden, unexpected death of Eddie Guerrero sent shockwaves throughout WWE. Latino Heat was one of the most popular superstars with fans, but was also beloved by those within the company, the former WWE champion's passing leaving a huge void. WWE immediately paid tribute to Guerrero with special episodes of Raw and SmackDown, and have continued to lionize his contributions to the business to this very day. However, they also used Eddie's death as storyline fodder in a way that upset many associated with WWE, including Mick Foley, who penned a strongly worded open letter to them in response. Some of the worst Eddie exploitation, as it's known by fans, was Randy Orton telling Rey Mysterio that his fallen friend was not in heaven but in hell, as well as the Legend Killer trashing one of Guerrero's lowrider cars by crashing it through the Blue Brand set. WWE continued to invoke Eddie's name for over a year after his passing, using him as the basis for the feud between Mysterio and Eddie's nephew Chavo, as well as Chavo's rivalry with Eddie's best friend Chris Benoit. Nobody involved was necessarily comfortable with any of it, but few felt like they could speak up against it at the time.